Greetings. So, I want to discuss a Gorean topic, and what I want to discuss is book thumping. Now, if you go into any Gorean message board and you disagree with someone, you can be sure that there will be people who seemingly don't have their own opinions, who just then copy paste a quote from the books that they think agree with what they are saying. So yeah, I mean, I have had that a few times when apparently I've made these also manly Gorean men run out of arguments, and I've gotten the typical a woman is free only as long as a man wish it. Yeah. Which means what exactly? I mean, it's that's covered this. It's saying I don't have any more arguments, so I'm gonna hide behind this quote. And you have exactly the same thing about anything, all from costumes to food to the philosophy, to what part are basically what parts of the book should be considered part of the philosophy. Anything. I mean, we have one in the message board over at Color Me. Yeah, he's a real gem. And he has this idea that Gor is all about a love relationship between a master and a slave. That's all being a Gorean is. It's a love relationship between a master and a slave. Yeah. And of course he has managed to dig out a few quotes that say something to that effect. But here's my point. There are 32 books in the Gor series. 32. Chances are that you'll be able to find a quote that tells you about anything. I mean, it's the same as with Bible thumpers. You can find any sort of quote in the Bible. If you just blather around enough, you'll find something that matches what you wanted to say, because there's just so much material there. And also, one thing you have to remember is that the Gor books were never written to be manuals of life. They are science fiction books. They're a story, so various characters will have various opinions, and not all of them have basically worldviews that fit with what you would typically call the Gorean philosophy. So basically, I mean, if you take quotes from that, I've forgotten her name, but there's a female slaver who captures some of the main characters and is a real bitch at Ron 2000. I'm sure some of her quotes are real gems. In fact, since I've read the book, I know some of her quotes are real gems. That doesn't really say the right, exactly what you would normally think from a Gorean source. Because these are books. They were never meant to be. I mean, John Norman, at first when he heard there was a lifestyle around these books, he was pretty shocked, and at first he didn't approve of it at all. Eventually he sort of accepted that we are not going away, and he sort of seems to be rather flattered about it now. He's even written a few letters to Gorean lifestylers. But at first, I mean, he was pretty appalled by the idea that anyone would take his books and live by them. And that should tell you that the books were never meant to be manuals of living. As such, you can't just call them the scriptures or the chronicles and take every word in it as gold. What you have to do to learn the Gorean philosophy is that you have to read the books. And you have to sit down and you have to think, what does this material say to me? What does it make me feel like? And you should also probably read up on the cultures that inspired the Gor books, such as the Romans, Greeks, Indians, Norse, and several others. And you should read up about these cultures and basically find that red thread that runs through them that John Norman picked up on when he made the Gor books. That way you can understand the philosophy. Just being able to spew quotes doesn't give you an understanding of something. Let me take an example. I was speaking to some Muslims. I know this is not meant to bash the Muslim religion, the Islamic religion in any way, because I think it's a great religion. It is meant to bash thumping and just accepting something as a religious truth without even considering it for yourself. So anyway, discussing with this a nice Muslim man, and I asked him, do you in your culture use wedding rings? Because I was curious. And he said, sometimes, but only women use it, especially if it's gold, because only women are supposed to wear gold. I said, and why is that? No, because it's a feminine metal. I said, and how is it a feminine metal? It's in the Quran. And there we have the problem. No attempt at understanding why it's in the Quran. It's just it's in the Quran, then it must be true. And you have some of the same things when it comes to not most, but quite a few Christians. When they look at basically the Bible, for example, the section on gays are evil. Why is homosexuality considered a negative thing? I mean, you can sit down and have a debate about that. Why would the Bible, who has quite a few very interesting concepts, outlaw this? And there's two reigning theories, for example. One is that the cultures that basically the early monotheistic religions were trying to influence allowed homosexuality, and as such they wanted to be different from those that they considered the competition. Another aspect is that these very, very often tribal societies, where basically every child born was a great gift because they needed more people, because a lot of people died very young. And as such, taking some men and women out of the breeding cycle, so to speak, were a great loss for the entire group. Same as it says in the Bible that eating shrimp or any type of shellfish, that's an abomination. Now why? Well, if you look at it, these tribal societies were often based in pretty warm nations. Many of the places were far from the sea. It makes a lot of sense to warn people against shellfish, since it tends to go bad pretty quickly and is very dangerous when it goes bad. Basically, when you find something in a text, whatever it is, a religious text, or a text like the Gor books, or a bit of poetry, I think it's important to sit down and think, what does this mean? Not just say, see, I can repeat the text. And I mean, we have this problem within Wicca, where you have the poem that we can read, which is a poem. It is not something descended from the gods. It might have you might say that the poet was inspired, but it is a poem. And a lot of people quote that poem like crazy without ever having sit down and thought, what does the words really mean, and what do the words mean to me? And as such, in many ways you can look at the Gor books and you can see how the characters live, and you can take inspiration from them. but it has to be deeper than just, see, I can quote something. Because, I mean, I can quote something too. Let me find a random book. Skeleton Warriors, Heart and Soul. Let's find a meaningful quote here. A man who has evil in his heart and makes no bone about it. It sounds like a decent quote, doesn't it? Let's find another. Blah 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 blah. All the skeleton warriors received those dazing gems when they were transformed by Baron Dark. The Heartstone crystal became the symbol of the evil skeleton hearts. I mean, that could definitely be used to say that using too much jewelry, that's evil. I mean, you can thump anything. You can take any source and you can just find a quote that sounds fancy and thump with it. And that it comes from the Gor books and not some piece of children's fiction that I happen to like because I'm a geek. It doesn't really matter. Now, I'm not saying that the quotes found in the Gor books can't be meaningful and can't give insight. Many of them can. There's a lot of good quotes, but they have to be understood or they will have no more meaning than reading Skeleton Warriors or the phone catalog for that matter. Because then it is just words. And also, quotes should not be used as a coward's way out of a debate. Basically, if you feel that your argument is based in a quote, don't just post a quote, boom, aha, I have a quote. No, explain then, in your own words, what you feel is right based on this quote. That is making an argument. Copy-pasting a quote, that is copy-pasting a quote. And yeah, first of all of these quotes needs to be interpreted, or they have no meaning. And secondly, you have to look at the context, because I mean, if you are in the middle of women in lots of robes and masks, land that hates men and enslave every man they happen to see within their city that doesn't leave within 24 hours, the quotes they present, since they are presented as the evil group in the or at least for one of the books, their quotes might not be as applicable to discussing the philosophy as, for example, a quote from Tarl in one of the later books. So you have to look at context. It's the same as with, for example, Bible quotes. Look at context. I mean, there's one famous quote from the Bible. I can't for the life of me remember exactly how it goes, but basically it sends everybody within, and it say, "It shall not be found among you," and not only isn't you're not gonna have cripples and people who are a weak of eye, and you're not gonna have people who practice magic, and you're not gonna have people who are prophets. The list goes on forever. And then you take this to mean you should just kill these people. But really, what the context of that quote is, there is this ritual celebration in one city, and instructions for the ritual says that all of these people that are considered imperfect should not be present. Now, of course, you can say that is a negative concept too, but it doesn't say these people should not be in society. It says these people should not be part of this ritual. And as such, the context for a quote is extremely important. And also there are a lot of quotes about basically, I'm just going to sit ready with this because I'm expecting a phone so I can stop it from making a lot of noise. basically there's a lot of quotes on branding, and it's completely useless because you can't brand people like that. And people die, or you end up in the hospital. Because that's how you, well, not exactly how you brand cows either, because if you do that to a cow, you might have to call a vet. It makes for good reading, but tying her down, having the brand, having it white hot, and holding it in, sinking into her flesh for 5 seconds. Yeah, you can find a lot of quotes about it. And the worst part of it is that some people actually take that. I mean, we had a debate about branding, and some say, oh, but see here, that's what the Gore books say. And I said, this is what various body modification artists and doctors say. Oh, it doesn't matter, the scriptures have spoken, this is how it's done. And I was thinking, oh sweet, let's just hope you never get a slave. So yeah, and since I have to run, I just wanted to finish up by saying quotes can be a great thing to set the mind in motion. It can be a great thing to meditate on, it can be a great start for knowledge. But you have to understand the words and not blindly repeat them. So when in a debate, consider what does your favorite quote or the quote you feel speaks about this situation say. And consider that. And then, once you have decided what the words means for you, what context they're in, and so on, then you can use that quote in an argument. Because whatever else the Gore books is, they are also pieces of fiction. That's what they've written. As Gorean lifestylers, our job is to take that fiction and make it into something that real people in the real world can live by. And you cannot do that just by copy-pasting quotes. So, I wish you all well. Have a great day.